The ability to communicate is one of the greatest gifts our thoughtful Lord conferred on mankind. Unfortunately, it has been with us so long that we are likely not to appreciate it, even though we see every day the miracle it brings to our lives. As recently as 2 centuries ago, the ability to communicate was limited to the power of the human voice. Just the distance one champion hog caller could communicate with another champion hog caller. Today, those two voices can go around the world in 1/30th of a second. We take this wondrous evolution for granted and dwell not on the ability to communicate, but the right to communicate. Freedom of speech, it is called. While the ability to communicate comes near to being a miracle, the right to communicate is a treasure too, a delicate thing to be handled with care, like uranium or nitroglycerin or the girl next door. Let's see how the wonderful phenomenon we call freedom of speech is being affected by modern-day change. Not many people, of course, could quote precisely the brief words coming from the First Amendment to the Constitution. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. You, from those words, know there has flowed quite a bit of rhetoric and legal vibrations that wander far, far afield from what was really intended. What would the drafters of the Bill of Rights think if they could read the wretched pornographic publications that are for sale today? Or if they could see the incredible films that do violence to the taste of most of us? All of these magazines are included by some misguided persons under the umbrella of the 14 words of the First Amendment. Against this rather sad backdrop, you could well expect me to tell about how basic freedoms are being adversely affected by dramatic changes from which we may never recover. We have indeed changed our trappings. We have indeed changed our lingo. We have indeed changed our style. But nothing we see today is truly new. We have seen it all in some image before. Let's talk quite frankly about some of the things in the world of communications that concern a lot of our citizens and see how they look in the light of history. First, take the matter of violence on television and violence on the screen. From that bitter moment in November 1963, when Jack Ruby shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald in full view of a national television audience, we have become increasingly absorbed in violence on TV. Millions of Americans are understandably worried by the trend. 3 cartoon programs out of 5 have violence woven into the script. Over a third of the network programs that are on prime time are designed on a fabric of blood, mayhem, murder, and death. And we are told that an act of violence is portrayed on the tube every few minutes. But is this a problem? A new one? It is not. The fascination of the human mind for bloody entertainment has made a black imprint on history before. Do you remember the society of Rome of this 2nd century? Do you remember the atmosphere of the arena where man was pitted against beast? Let us recall that great national buildings such as the Colosseum were built by public funds for the entertainment of men, women, and children, and bloody performances involving hundreds of gladiators often lasted for 4 days. You are acquainted with what they called the tournament in France 1,000 years ago, and in England 600 years ago. Men and horses were often engaged in a bloody contest. The lucky man fell off his horse and was just shaken up and humiliated in front of the girls. The less lucky man might end up with a lance through his vitals as the crowd cheered, even as on television and film today. Truly, the more things change, the more they are the same. But how about the great wave of pornography in today's society? Do you think that is without precedent? Not at all. The pornographic art of ancient China and ancient Japan has no equal even in the picture magazines that we permit to go through the mails today. As a matter of fact, the lascivious writings of 12th century England or 14th century Italy would compete effectively with the most extreme books of today and the worst X-rated movie. No, there is no question that we are dealing with change. We are dealing with phenomena that have long and well-recorded historical precedent. What caused the spectacle of the Colosseum to fade into oblivion? It was not laws, it was not regulations. The fact is, those violent contests flourished despite the fact that they became more and more heavily governed by laws as the years passed. By 200 AD, they were literally swamped in regulations as to who should fight whom, how, and for how long. The contests were abolished by law in 325 AD, but we still are able to read of a gladiatorial event taking place as late as 404 AD. Ultimately, they came to an end, but it was not as a result of legislation. See, that was 6 into 880, it's 1, 2, 170.